Today's episode is brought to you by FreedomProject Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. Before we get started, please hit that share button so we can educate more patriots around the country. Today, we're kicking things off with our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Hello, Alex.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Duke. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, if you think radical sexuality is the only books in your public school you got to worry about, think again. We knew that politics and anti-religion and anti-Christianity were just right behind. Take a look at this video, Alex, and we'll have a conversation.
We have a child who before kindergarten dances and plays and paints their face and invents stories and feels free in the world, and then they go to school and they get called terrible names. And it's just like, what is happening here at school? And they get yelled at for acting like a girl, whatever that means. They introduce us to Moxie, their best friend, who's queer like they are. And Addie, the radical librarian, and Ms. O, the teacher who loves me, and Mr. Vasquez, the counselor, who's also queer. Are you going to punish the people of Earth who hate me and blame it on you? He asks. And Jesus says, no. Everyone is invited to love and be loved. How about him? And here arrives the spirit of Billy Porter in his tuxedo ball gown. And he sashays along that red carpet and he waves up at them. And especially him, says Jesus Christ. Love the dress, Billy. And Billy says, yours too, baby. Everyone on this page is wearing a dress. That's Mitch McConnell. And the child wants to know if even Mitch McConnell is invited to love and be loved, considering all of the harm he is causing. And Jesus Christ says yes.
My God, this is wackadoodle turned priestess turned guru turned gay counselor to, I don't know, lunatic.
It really is hard to believe. And, you know, we heard for so many decades, oh, you can't have religion in school, you can't have politics in school. But that obviously only applies to conservatives, and that only applies to Christianity. You can peddle all the Democrat propaganda you want. You can make as much fun of Christianity as you want. In fact, one of the premises of this goofy story, this insane propaganda that they're pushing on kids, is that, even though the pastors preach about love, really they're just causing poor little kids like me to feel shame because I'm queer, I'm wearing a dress, and I feel bad about that. And just to be clear, Duke, this is just one book of many that are on this insane New York Department of Education so-called mosaic reading list. This one's recommended for fifth graders, but then they've got books for kindergartners promoting transgenderism. They've got books for first and second graders promoting race mongering and critical race theory. This is where they're going with the public schools, folks, and you better pay attention.
Tell me about this author. She's fairly prolific, but one of many of these kind of way out there authors that your kids are being exposed to.
Yeah, Anastasia Higginbotham is a radical left-wing feminist. She says that the institution of patriarchy, which is a father-led home, a father-led family, husband-led home, is a dying institution, and basically wants to program your kids with radical progressive propaganda. They should be queer, that they should think that the church is bad because it makes people feel ashamed of wanting to be queer. This is where they're going. Of course, Republicans are the obvious villains. The black Democrat Jesus is a very interesting character, but let that sink in, folks, that this is the kind of propaganda they are peddling in taxpayer-funded schools to little children who eat crayons and boogers, children who don't know how to tie their shoes yet are being programmed with this kind of political indoctrination.
Yeah, it is really sad, although we knew and we've always known that at the heart of a lot of this pushback, cultural pushback, is a war against on Christianity. The idea here that that black Jesus wears a dress, right? And notice that all he does is love in his dress. The idea that the world was made a certain way, or that men and women are part of God's creation, in particular named directly, none of that stuff. Just, it's like the more outrageous your clothes, the more you're loved. And then I love how broad-minded she is. Yes, Mitch McConnell's destroying the world and destroying the lives of queer people, but black Democrat dress-wearing Jesus, he's still invited to love too, right? Like if Mitch was to have a Brokeback moment, suddenly he'd be apotheosized as a saint or something. It's very creepy.
Yeah. As soon as he repents of his sin of not approving of queerness, but, who knows where Mitch McConnell actually stands on stuff. The guy's one of the slimiest politicians out there. I don't think a lot of conservatives are going to shed tears about him. But as soon as he repents of his evil ways of not being totally supportive of the Democrat agenda, then he gets to be part of the dress-wearing Jesus club, too. It's disgusting, Duke. It's indoctrination of children. It needs to stop. And they confronted the public school officials. They're not ashamed of this at all. In fact, they're quite proud of it. Only parents can stop this madness.
The purpose of school is radical change. It is not anything else. And when I say radical change, that goes right back to the sloganeering of the early socialists. The purpose of education is radical transformation. It's not about reading, writing, math. It's not about any of that stuff. We've said it so many times, and the evidence and the horrific consequences every day. See, every time we talk, Alex, it seems they've ratcheted it up on the left, how far they're willing to go. We appreciate your time today.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
Back in my day, we looked up to our elders and we respected adults. Then I grew up, and those adults got older, but not at all wiser.
Should Americans be prepared for a recession? In your view, is a recession in the United States inevitable?
No.
What was that, old man? Did I hear a no?
Look, you're talking about the significant progress we've made in making sure we don't have supply chain backups, about the 8,000 jobs that Hyundai is going to be bringing to Georgia, 3,000 jobs to Texas from Samsung, $17 billion investment, Toyota, 1,700 jobs in North Carolina on battery technology, the situation where we've created over 8 million new jobs, where unemployment's down to 3.6%, and so on and so forth, as if they're a problem. Imagine where we'd be with Putin's tax and the war in Ukraine had we not made that enormous progress.
Look, go get that electric vehicle as you imagine where we'd be if Joe was never put in office, and then cry yourself to sleep tonight. Just as a reminder, Joe is part of the silent generation, and he should really take that title seriously. Please, Joe, just shush yourself. But even if Joe stays silent, his boomer wife, the greatest Dr. J who doesn't play basketball, Jill Biden, will carry the country into oblivion. She'll inspire the next generation, or at least those in Ecuador, to come to America because she has no understanding of pretty much anything.
What does inequality in the United States matter to young people right here in Quito? But they do matter. Injustice and corruption, poverty and pollution, disease and despair, they aren't contained by any borders. If we learned anything from the COVID-19 pandemic, from these last few years of sickness and sorrow, it's how one deadly virus can move through the world.
The audio is as off as her message. Which brings us to the question this week. Which of the silent generation, or the boomers, or those younger ones, has proven they should be shushed the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and please share the desire for the shushing of these people. From the greatest doctor in the White House to the other greatest doctor in the White House, the Fauci must have just seen the bat signal. Or hopefully not, because it probably means another Wuhan disease is a-comin'. But anyway, the monkeypox is upon us, and you should be terrified.
What if your health advisors told you your level of concern should be about monkeypox and the cases that are in the United States and around the world?
Well, they haven't told me the level of exposure yet, but it is something that everybody should be concerned about. We're working on it hard, figure out what we do and what vaccine, if any, may be available for it. But it is a concern in the sense that if it were to spread, it's consequential.
I mean, we don't know what's happening, but we're working really hard on it. Top priority, I'm sure. Please, someone, give that man a sticker for his efforts. But what could Dr. Anthony Fauci do for us in this instance? Glad you asked. The Fauci was the demon in charge of that AIDS research back in the 80s, and now he's in his 80s, so he should front this non-pandemic that is being made to be a big deal. And it's because this monkeypox is spreading through, men having sex with one another. Now, it may not be the only way it spreads, but when one man's monkey is inserted into another man, the pox has been appearing. Hey, I'm just saying that if San Francisco has an outbreak, the leading theory will be the answer. And on the note of San Francisco, how about Nancy, the good Catholic Pelosi? She's just out there doing all good things, like claiming abortion is a kitchen table issue.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the optimism we have about how urgent this election is. Our democracy is on the ballot. People expect that to be taken care of. They want to know what we're doing about their kitchen table issues. Food, education, prescription drugs. You want to talk about prescription drugs? Only 12 of them voted with us to make insulin cheaper. So our democracy on the ballot, freedom that springs from our democracy on the ballot. A woman's right to choose is on the ballot, and that is a kitchen table issue.
Stay away from my kitchen table, Nancy. But hey, almost as if it's divine providence, on the very same day, San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone banned Nancy from receiving Holy Communion. He said about Pelosi that more recently, her advocacy for codifying the Roe decision into federal law, it's becoming more and more extreme and more aggressive. And he's been trying to speak with her about it. He also said he believes Pelosi that she's a devout Catholic, but added, which makes me perplexed at why she would be so forceful on this issue as a politician. He said it's very tricky as a politician. There are so many issues to balance out in trying to come to some kind of consensus and compromise and all that. But to be so aggressively promoting it, that's not what a devout Catholic does. Obviously, Nancy had her favorite abortion defenders. The San Francisco Examiner chimed in with an editorial saying the attack on Nancy Pelosi should be San Francisco Archbishop's final act here. Nancy actually did get communion a few days later, like a rebel or a heathen, whichever you want to say, because she was in Washington, D.C., where she pretends to represent her constituents. Nancy finally responded to the Archbishop's ban by pivoting and making her usual absurd claims because she's a good Catholic, after all.
I wonder about death penalty, which I am opposed to. So is the church, but they take no action against people who may not share their view. Thank you for referencing the Gospel of Matthew, which is sort of the agenda of the church that is rejected by many who side with them on terminating a pregnancy. So we just have to be prayerful. We have to be respectful. I come from a largely pro-life Italian-American Catholic family, so I respect people's views about that, but I don't respect us foisting it onto others.
And then you have Whoopi Goldberg giving her view.
The abortion rights battle is starting to blur the lines between church and state. The Archbishop of San Francisco is calling for Speaker Nancy Pelosi to be denied receiving communion because of her pro-choice stance. He's one of the priests who also called for President Biden to be denied sacrament. This is not your job, dude. That is not up to you to make that decision.
Well, dude, Whoopi clearly did not take her own advice.
That's what you need. You have to put attitude in what you're saying. You have to think about what you're singing. It's not just quacking. This is rejoicing. You are singing to the Lord.
But instead, you know what Whoopi just did right there? It figures that a Karen like Karen Elaine Johnson, or Whoopi, as you may know her, would come to Nancy's defense because she knows all about Catholicism.
You know, what is the saying? It's kind of amazing. But, you know, what is the point of communion, right? It's for sinners. It's for sinners. It's the reward of saints, but the bread of sinners. How dare you? How dare you?
There's only one thing left to say to Whoopi.
Bless you.
As we know, both Nancy and Whoopi have a special fondness for their President Joe Biden. And they will do anything for him.
I will follow him wherever he may go.
There isn't an abortion too evil, a hatefulness so high it can keep them away from his lies. And if you think that's extreme, just listen to the Good Catholic.
I have absolutely no intention of the Democrats not winning the House in November. I think that in terms of the work that this president has done, and he's been a great president. I don't know about polls, but I do know about winning the races one district at a time.
On the note of love, big breaking news that absolutely no one cares about. The one and thankfully only Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just got engaged. So she's probably singing this as well. I just love that song, so you got to hear it again. Sorry, not sorry. Now, I'm not sure if AOC started the wedding planning, but I hope she doesn't choose to have any of the reception at the Lincoln Memorial because those of her generation have already ruined it enough. Over the weekend, the Lincoln Memorial had to close after there was a graduation celebration whose participants left the place trashed with litter, broken bottles, and spilled wine and champagne all over the steps. I think you all join me in the same response.
I have no respect. I don't get no respect at all.
These hooligans have been at the university for probably 6 years, which is the average time now for anyone to finish all their gender studies and social justice coursework. But if they would have just joined the choir, they may have been taught to be joyful, joyful.
Joyful, joyful Lord, we adore thee. God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee. Hail me as the Son above.
Joining that choir would have taught those students how to be down with GOD. Yeah, you know me. It's quite apparent that most students in America need an actual education. Because after seeing the latest Man on the Street interview for Fleckus Talks, I am convinced they have received zero information that is helpful, and I'm confident that we're all doomed.
Probably like, I don't know, like 1901?
Yes, very good.
It is?
It was close around there, but I'll give it to you. Who fought in the Civil War?
I don't know.
Do you know how many continents there are?
No.
How many states make up the United States?
How many states make?
Dude, how dare you assume that person's gender? As you can see from the last umpteen minutes, all of our generations have dum-dums. And they have people who just need to shush because they are making the world a worse place. All of them need a little bit more of being joyful, joyful, and being down with GOD. And they need to keep close their F's: faith, family, and friends. Now, if you'd share this video, you'll be joining in making the world a better place. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
On May 21st, Florida's Naples United Church of Christ hosted a youth pride conference, a free event for kids as young as 12, and featured a drag show. All right, first, we now must clarify and define what the word church means. Second, the LGBTQ church event was initially going to use local middle schools as pickup points to bus kids to the Pride Conference. I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. LGBTQ organizers say the conference serves as, quote, an exploration of LGBTQ-related issues facing today's youth. And the ad targeted ages 12 through 18. Activities, breakfast and lunch, breakout sessions, panel discussion, keynote address by Isaac Salazar with LGBT Network, Zebra Coalition, and a drag show. Attendees were asked to register and enter their pronouns, of course, also the name of their school, and enjoy free shuttle transportation at Immokalee and Golden Gate Middle Schools. So, prior to the event, Florida's Voice, who does some good work, they reached out to Collier County schools on why transportation from school property was provided to an LGBTQ drag show. Here's the response, quote, the district was never informed nor contacted about this event. CCPS is not a sponsor of the event, which is being held at a private facility. CCPS also neither authorized nor approved the transportation of CCPS students to and from district school sites by the event organizers. Any inference to the contrary is fully rejected by CCPS. As if godless government schools today don't approve of LGBTQ promotion and events, right? Right, okay, they have nothing to do with it, nothing to see here, move along. But the important thing, let's address the church, quotes, that hosted and blesses the perversion. Naples, UCC, United Church of Christ, is led by Reverend Dawson Taylor. Their website says Dawson became senior minister in 2016 and holds a BA in political science. Remember, just because a man has a title of pastor, reverend, or minister doesn't mean we can believe that they are serving under the traditional roles for pastor outlined in the Bible. These days, you just need to be a progressive, a liberal, or a friend of the world to be a leader at some churches. A biblical education and proper application of Scripture is not required in many of these churches. Case in point, the good Reverend Dawson tried hosting a gay prom at his church last month for children. He also describes himself as being a proud progressive. In his Twitter bio, which has since been removed, at least this part of it was, he boasted hashtag BLM in support of the Marxist-driven, anti-family, anti-Christian activist organization that spreads hate and racial division. It's also not a shocker that Dawson stands with big abortion business, Planned Parenthood. There you go. A few months ago, he tweeted this: "We are all Ukraine. We are all transgender young people. We are all women who need access to health care without government interference. Let us pray, especially for those oppressed by bullies with power." I'm just wondering who or what God, small g, he is praying to. We'll get back to that another time. But it's no wonder the latest Barna research that we reported on right here last week found 62% of pastors today lacking a biblical worldview. The church justifies twisted theology under the guise of popular code words and language. You ready again for this refresher? Compassion, diversity, inclusion, progressive, welcoming, and boasts about being one of the many UCC churches that advocate for personal and social responsibility, end quote. There you have it. not biblical, but a social gospel. Some declare that this is another gospel that we are warned about, and that's warned against in Scripture. Now, let's face it, we will likely see more compromise in the future and more headlines featuring professing churches and so-called pastors, reverends, leaders involved with and supporting all things having to do with LGBTQ culture. Red State recently provided a few headlines as reminders. Check these out. Church hosts Pride drag show. Lutheran diocese announces the church itself is trans. Pastor claims Jesus transgenders himself in the Bible. United Methodist Church holds drag show to protest same-sex marriage ban. Christian Divinity School recites prayer to the Great Queer One, who's a drag queen and trans man. And this one, Christian Church leads prayer to the God of pronouns, the great they, them, who breastfeeds. I know. Oh, brother. But people are falling for it. Similar to the far-left Democrat Party, power elite globalists, and teachers' unions, the LGBTQ minions are overplaying their hand here, don't you think? They're pushing it to the limit, but only time will tell. And maybe more American parents of young children will join the resistance. Meanwhile, related news, Disney is doubling down on its radicalism and thumbs their nose at concerned parents. They just launched an LGBTQ-themed apparel and accessories line called Disney Pride Collection, of course. All profits will be donated to groups that support LGBTQIA+++ youth and families. Of course, no commentary needed because we recently reported on Disney's decline and depravity, as well as for those who are just now catching up and waking up to what's happening all around us. God bless you, and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.
If you have a question for Dr. Duke and Katie, please send it our way by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
And that's going to do it for this show. I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.